Did you get
Okay.
the broadcast key?
Uh, let's see. Well, it didn't. Usually it'll say, it'll give me the option up top to stream to my audience, but it's not.
It didn't pull up.
Mm-mm.
It may be because I let my pro version go of StreamYard, and
Oh,
because I
okay.
wasn't streaming.
Yeah, no, that's
I need
fine.
to get that hooked back up. So I think we're on the free tier right now. That's probably why.
No
But
worries.
anyway,
Works.
uh yeah, so welcome everybody as we get started here today to the live stream with the Raider D podcast and my boy Chris over at Protect the Shield. Good to have all you guys. As you get checking in here today, make sure you drop your comments down below. I want to see some Raiders in the comments. Big Chris over at Protect the Shield podcast. If you guys don't know who this man is, please go and check him out on YouTube, X, Instagram, everywhere. If you just put in Protect the Shield podcast, he will pull up. My man, Chris, what's going on, brother?
Man, I am just living the dream, man. Just excited to talk some Raider talk. We got a lot going on. Hearing a lot of good stuff out of OTAs and stuff. So, I couldn't be actually this is the time of year when we're most excited, because the Raiders haven't let us down yet. So
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Like we always get that excitement,
yeah,
and then things don't turn out the way we want. At least that's the way it's been for the past couple of decades. But I
yeah,
think that I'm so much more optimistic this year than I was last year. I was optimistic last year, but there was a lot of big unknowns.
yeah,
This year we have an all-star cast, man. I mean, how can you go wrong with this cast characters that we have in the coaching staff? We have a competent quarterback who can also move with his feet. This is definitely no disparaging against Aiden O'Connell. I think he should have been the starter last year from the jump. But if I have to go with Aiden O'Connell or I have to go with Geno Smith, Geno Smith has been in the NFL for longer.
yeah,
He's mobile, he's accurate, and I think the biggest advantage that he has is just experience. He has more
absolutely.
experience in the NFL, and he's proven that he can be that guy if you put the right cast of characters around him. And we're going to get into all that and more on today's episode. So happy to have you here, brother. I wanted to jump in right away and let's just talk about the biggest thing that the Raiders did this year, Ashton Genty. What are your thoughts? Did you support drafting a running back at pick number 6? And how did you feel about it?
Yeah, so I like the prospect of Genty. I think Genty is he could be a phenomenal player. But if to answer your question, was I in big support of drafting him at 6? I wasn't. Um, I'm just not a believer in drafting a running back that high. Specifically in this draft class where there were it was pretty deep at the running back position. Like you look at the Cleveland Browns and some other teams that were able to get a very quality running back, in the second round. So that was my only thing. But now that he's part of the Raider Nation, I'm all for him. I think he's going to do well. But to answer your question, at 6, I wasn't too enthused originally.
I'll say this. So I had one of our running backs, Chris Collier, on the program last month, and I asked him the question prior to the draft, how did he feel about Ashton Genty from being a professional running back in the NFL? Been there, done that, all that stuff. I know like it's only his second year and whatnot in the NFL, but
Yeah.
he's gone through college. He got picked up by Baltimore, came to the Raiders last season.
Mm-hmm.
Is he the real deal? And would he be excited to have him on the Raiders? And he lit up. He was like, this dude is absolutely the real deal. What he's able to do is amazing. And he's like, not saying that I can't compete, but having him on the team would be a big boost because he
Yeah.
absolutely is the real deal. And I think that just goes a long way because Chris Collier, he's fighting for his own position on this
Yeah.
team. And
Yeah.
for him to recognize, listen, Ashton Genty is 100% legit. What he was able to do in college was not a fluke. And
Yeah.
if you go back and you kind of look at his progression as he was in college at Boise State, he just got better every year.
He did.
And I do know I understand the argument that a lot of people made that Boise State made it an intention. They knew they weren't going to win a national championship or anything,
Yeah.
but they made it an intention to have the best running back come out of their school. It's good for the program right?
Yeah.
You're going to be able to recruit better players because look what Ashton Genty did. It put them on the map. They had
Yeah.
fallen off the map for some time.
Yep.
So I get that point that they intentionally were feeding him the rock. But man, when you watch this kid play,
Oh, he's special.
he is something
He's
different.
special.
He is
He's
something
special.
different. I think I would agree 100%. Like if Ashton Genty was not in this draft class, absolutely, there's not a running back that I would have taken in the first round. Second round, yes, 100%. Maybe late first round, but
Mhm.
Ashton Genty, he's just something different. And what I'm hoping is that the way that we struck gold with Brock Bowers last year turns
Yeah.
out to be the same thing with Ashton Genty. Because if
We
that's
have
the
to.
case,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're off and rolling. Our
Yeah.
our offense is going to be dynamic.
Yeah. No, yeah, I agree 1,000%. The thing is, like I said, I think he's special. The only thing that, I just have to see it, because, being in the conference he was in, we understand that, he may have not always played the best of the best. But he still played some good competition. But his best attribute is breaking tackles, being able to evade defenders. So I just want to see him do that at the next level. I want to see him be able to break tackles from Chris Jones, be able to break tackles from, all the best guys, the Jalen Carters and stuff like that. Like, is he going to be able to bounce off of those type of tackles? So, because he's not super like explosive as far as like a home run hitter, as far as like direct speed. So, but I like his game. I think he's going to be good out of the backfield as well, catching passes and stuff like that. I just want to see him break those tackles at the NFL level, and then I'm good to go, man. I'm good to go.
Yeah. And now there's a couple of things. I think number one, that Ashton Genty, when you watch him on tape, it doesn't appear as though he's like a 4.2 guy or anything, and he's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah,
But I don't even know what his actual 40 is. I've tried to find it and I couldn't find
yeah.
it.
He didn't run.
But
Yeah,
I watch this dude outrun cornerbacks
yeah,
in college football. Granted, it's college, but
yeah.
these guys in college, they're running 4.4s
They're
and
fast.
4.3s too.
Yeah,
And he's outrunning those dudes. So that's one of my biggest things with him that irritated me about Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is a great running back. And he's proven that multiple years with 1,000-yard rushing plus, even leading 2 years ago with the Raiders at
yeah,
1,600 yards. He's great. Problem is he gets run down from behind too often because he
yeah,
doesn't have speed. I
yeah.
think Ashton Genty is faster. I think Ashton Genty, if he breaks out and he's got a good angle,
You
you
think
could
he's
see
gone?
him pick up those 40, 50, 60-yard touchdowns at least a few times a season, and that will
Yeah,
really boost the Raiders. That's one thing. But the other thing is, everybody does kind of focus on his ability to pinball off of tacklers,
yeah,
which is a highlight reel, and it's a lot of fun.
yeah,
But if you go and you actually watch his actual game tape, what's more impressive to me is his vision and his
yeah.
patience.
And instinct. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
This was kind of my problem with Zamir White last year.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Zamir White would way too often pick the wrong hole, and he wouldn't be patient enough to make sure that the block was open up anyway.
yeah,
And then when it would open, he would go to the wrong side, or he would just, try to bull rush over tacklers when he could have
yeah.
just angled away. You don't see anything of that nature with Ashton Genty,
Mhm.
because his vision is, in my opinion, it's probably his most elite attribute. Because, like
Mhm.
you said, when you're in the NFL, you're not going against guys who graduate from college and go on to be accountants.
Right,
You're
right,
you're you're
right.
going up against the Chris Joneses. You're going up against even in practice, you're going up against the Max Crosbys of the world. Um, you're not going to get out of every one of those tackles. So
Right.
if you don't have elite vision, you're not going to have the success in the NFL that you had in college. And I think that that's what's going to give him an edge, is that elite vision, his patience, and his ability to just figure out a way to
Yeah,
get through the smallest of creases in that offensive line, and then he's off to the races.
yeah,
So I'm excited about it. I'm really hoping that the threat of an Ashton Genty, and listen, we have some good, we always are focusing on Ashton Genty now because he's a 6 overall pick. But what about Raheem Mostert? This
bro.
dude ain't no slouch.
That's a home run hitter right there. That's a home
Yeah.
like Like, that could be a good 1-2 punch, man. As long as he stays healthy, and I think having someone like Genty who's durable is going to be able to keep Mostert, healthy and be able to have that tandem. That's exciting. That's definitely exciting.
And then, of course, I mean, I'm not biased simply because he was on the show or whatever, but Chris Collier is, for me, he's the dark horse of this entire running back group that we have with the Raiders right now. I mean, we have Dylan Laube, we still have Zamir White, we have Collier, we have Genty, we have Mostert, we have McCormick. We have a bunch of running backs. We're not
Yeah.
going to when it
Yeah.
hits
Oh yeah.
regular season,
Yeah.
right? We're going to have 3 maybe.
Yeah.
So, and then we're gonna have one on the practice squad. When you look at, and he didn't really get an opportunity, but when you look at his college game tape, Chris Collier is a big, strong, fast man.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
think that if he's given the opportunity by the Raiders, to at the very least make the third running back slot with the 53-man roster,
Yeah.
I think we have a very powerful running back core there because Chris he's just one of those dudes. He's more of a straight line guy.
Yeah.
But he is going to run people over. He's going to bruise them. He's going to make them regret trying to tackle him. And he's a lot faster than people give him credit for.
Oh yeah.
Because I went back before I interviewed him and after I've watched a lot of his game tape, and it's pretty impressive. So I don't know where we go with Zamir White, to be honest. I don't know where his role in this team is. I mean, he very well could end up on a practice squad. What do you think
Yeah.
about Zamir and his future with the Raiders?
Yeah, no, you kind of hit it dead on the nose. Zamir is a guy that, he has like the physical attributes, he's a pretty good size, good speed. But he just can't, find the hole. He reminds me a lot of kind of like how Justin Fargas was back in the day, where, he ran. I mean, Justin ran a little bit harder, but just being like, a bigger back that can move, but just the vision's not there. The vision, the anticipation of the block, just the instinct, that Genty has. And in his pass pro is decent. He was a pretty decent blocker, but I'm not, he may be a guy that, that just does not make the cut. And then if I remember right, I think he had a couple fumbling issues. So it's like you already are not making plays, but you're losing the ball. He really may be a cut candidate, honestly. And it kind of is what it is. But if you cannot find a hole, if you cannot show that you can get into space and evade defenders, being a running back just is not gonna go very well for you in the NFL. That's just how it is.
So we've got we have a couple on the running back side. We have a few guys who are kind of the odd man out. They're all fighting for that third running back position. And I believe with Pete Carroll, he'll keep 3 running backs on the active roster.
Yeah, for sure.
Because at least one of them can go back and return punts or something like that, or play on special teams. But you really want to keep 3, because if you lose a running back during the game or something like that, you got to have some extra guys there. So I think it comes down to Sincere McCormick, who when he finally got an opportunity showed out and then got hurt, which sucks for him. And then you have Chris Collier, Zamir White, and the white kid, I just forgot his name now. I just said
Laube.
Yeah. So out of that cast of characters, who do you think that the Raiders will keep as the third running back, and who's going to end up getting chopped? Because listen, Raheem Mostert is a home run hitter, but he's also 32?
Yeah.
It's probably going to be a one and done with the Raiders with him. He's probably got 1 year in him, and then most likely a retirement or move on to another team for a backup role or something. Because there's not a whole lot of 33, 34-year-old running backs in the NFL. So you got to keep youth, right? You got to make sure that you're not losing your youth, because you can't depend on Raheem for the next couple of years.
Right. No, I agree. With running back being such a physical position, Mostert, and my thing is when Mostert's healthy, he can be dynamic. So, I definitely think, he'll get his opportunity. And the thing is, in a Chip Kelly offense, someone like Mostert can be very dangerous. So if he can stay healthy, he may be a guy that Chip Kelly may want to hold on to, over the next couple of years. But with his age, you just never know. But if I'm looking at the third spot, I really think it's kind of up for grabs. I think it's going to be the guy who can do those little things. The guy who can, catch the ball out the backfield. The guy who has good pass pro. And like you said, Collier. He's a guy that can, get those short yardage. He's a thumper. He runs hard. Genty runs hard as well, but sometimes, if you're in goal line situation, you may want to put a bigger body back there, so he has a real shot. McCormick, I like McCormick, but again, he can't stay healthy. He's a smaller guy. So I don't know if you can trust him, he may be a guy that may be on the outside looking in. And Lauby's kind of the same way. I know he kind of got in the doghouse early last year. But it kind of depends on, who kind of, turns it up in training camp and who can do those little things. So to me, it's going to be a very good battle between those guys, I think.
What do you think about Lauby transitioning to a slot receiver? I think that's how they should, in a Chip Kelly offense. I think they should utilize his ability to catch out of the backfield much more than trying to turn him into some kind of feature back in the NFL. That doesn't make any sense. It seemed like that's kind of what the idea was, is test him out as a feature back, running back type thing, but he doesn't have the physicality for that. But he's got speed, he's shifty, and he can catch the ball really well. What about trying to transition him? I think that's what he should do with his career.
It's possible. But I think that transition is harder than what it sounds. I think as fans, we're like, hey, it's easy just to move someone to a slot, but to be a slot and to be dynamic at it, it's harder. Like, I do think that the guy that we got, Tommy Mellett or whatever, I think he'll be able to do it. But I don't know, man. Dylan, like I said, he is quick enough. He's athletic enough. I just don't know if everyone is built for that. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Because I don't want to see him get cut from the team. I think he has something there. He's a good special teamer for sure. So I think he can make the special teams. I think with touchdown Tommy, same thing. I don't know how this transition is going to work. Like, even he said, like, he played his whole career at quarterback. I don't know. Now they want him to be a receiver. He's going to do whatever they ask him to do, but he's spent his whole college career and high school career at quarterback. So transitioning, trying to make him into a wide receiver, how is that going to play out? I think he'll be good on special teams, especially because he's a very fast dude.
Yeah.
But I want to move on to the wide receiver position, right? So let's talk about where we're at with the wide receivers. What do you think that Dante Thornton Jr., a flat 4.3 speed guy, big body, 6'4", what does this mean for Trey Tucker's career with the Raiders? Because Trey Tucker's our speed guy, but he's also 5'10".
Yeah. No, honestly, Thornton is. I think he could honestly be the glue to this offense. Very underrated pickup there. Because to be honest, when we first got Jack Besh, I was a little puzzled because I like his physicality, but I'm like, we still need a guy that can go downfield, who can stretch the field, who can get that 50-50 ball. Trey Tucker, unfortunately, he's just not it. He has speed, but you're not going to be able to just if it's one-on-one and just throw a 50-50 ball up to Trey. That's just not what his game is. So Trey's going to be in trouble. The only thing that I think may help him is, again, Chip Kelly is very innovative, so he knows how to get his guys the ball. So he can probably at least use Trey's skill set to the best way possible, is getting him the ball in space. whether it's end arounds, reverses, things like that, screens. But when you get someone like Dante that has that the physical, as big as he is as fast as he is, he is gonna he's gonna scare defensive coordinators because no matter what, all you got to do a couple times early in the game is just at least throw it to him, at least
Yeah.
take that shot. That's at least going to make defensive coordinators at least think about that for the rest of the game. So then when you got to have a safety on top, then that's when Brock Bowers eats. That's when Jack is going to eat. That's when Jacoby's going to eat. So he's the glue of that offense, and I'm excited for him
Because he's raw.
Yeah.
And the style of offense that he played in college was not pro style, so his route tree was very limited. He had like basically 4 routes he ran all
Yeah.
year. And then the rest of his, just all out go route, just go, And now he's going to have to pick that up. But I loved in his interview where when he transferred, that's what they asked him to do, and that's what he did. But a lot of people are knocking him for having a lack of a tree route. He's like, I have one. Just
Yeah.
that's not what they used me
Not what
for
they asked me to do.
where I went to school.
Yeah.
So, I got to get back to it. I got to work on it. I got to knock the rust off of it. He's like, I do have a good route tree of different routes that I can run. So I'm looking forward to see his progression. And like you said, man, at 6'4", there's no corners in the NFL that tall.
No.
There's nobody that has that arm length. There's big corners. There's 6'1", 6'2" corners in the NFL, but not 6'4" and not at 4.3 speed.
No.
And so when you have that combination, I think it spells trouble for any defenses. And a lot of people don't understand this. This is one of the great things about having Geno Smith here and then a Dante Thornton Jr., depending on how fast they can get him into the rotation, that is.
Yeah.
Geno likes to throw the ball to really fast, really tall wide receivers. They had one in Seattle. He's now, where did he go now?
Who, DK?
Baltimore, Pittsburgh. I think he went to Pittsburgh. DK went to Pittsburgh, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Which is funny because Pittsburgh has no quarterback. So he
Yeah.
was like, I want out of here because we don't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? You went to somewhere where they don't have a quarterback.
Right.
But
No,
yeah, so I mean, he's Geno is very adept at throwing the ball to a very tall, very fast, physical wide receiver in DK Metcalf, and now he has a younger version of that, not nearly as strong.
Yeah.
DK was just a freak of nature.
Yeah.
Like, it was insane how strong, fast, and tall this dude was. But as far as the speed goes and the hands and everything else, yeah, Dante Thornton Jr. is going to be a major problem for defenses, depending on how fast he can get in there. But here's the real question. Now, we know that Jacoby Myers is on his final year of his deal. They've not given him an extension.
Yeah.
And then you go and you draft Jack Bech, who is basically the replacement for Jacoby Myers if Jacoby Myers leaves. Do you think that them having Jack Bech, if he really progresses in the offseason, preseason, and then they get him in some games and he's showing something, does that spell the end of a Jacoby Myers? Because now you don't need to re-sign him because you got Jack Bech to replace him. Or do the Raiders say, no, Jacoby is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. He is a workhorse who can do everything, Swiss Army knife. Let's get him paid. What do you think the Raiders are going to do with Jacoby if Jack Bech plays well?
I think under no circumstance are we going to let Jacoby walk. I think that Jacoby is a Pete Carroll type of guy. I mean, if you talk to any Raiders player, they always kind of talk about Jacoby. I saw it was probably about a month ago. It was Josh Jacobs. He was on a interview and they were kind of asking him about, who was, one of the most underrated players he's ever played with. And he said Jacoby. You always hear the coaches talk about Jacoby. He's excellent in the locker room. He is a guy that works hard. He does all the things the right way. He's a guy that's going to block. He's going to do his routes in the middle. He's just the ultimate teammate. And sometimes it's worth paying a little extra for that. I don't think he'll ever demand, a real high contract because Um, he had 1,000 yards this past year, but he's not going to have the production to demand a very large contract because our true number one is going to be Brock Bowers. But you don't let a leader like that and just a good blue collar lunch pail type guy just walk. Because the moment you do, that guy's going to be probably back in New England. Josh McDaniels and Vrabel's going to throw the bag at him because he's just a guy that you want in that locker room, and he's a guy that can help develop young players. So I just can't see us, especially a guys, we're trying to build a culture. That's one thing that I think Pete is big on, is building this culture the right way, and that's the kind of player that's going to be the foundation of it.
Yeah, reliability, accountability, durability. He's got all of it.
Got all of
Right?
it. Got all of
So
it.
yeah, I agree. So I think that here's the crux of the situation when it comes to the wide receiver room. I think Trey Tucker, I don't think he can be the Y. I
No,
think putting
yeah,
him on the outside doesn't make a lot of sense. You need
no,
to use Trey more as a gimmick wide receiver, move him into the slot, move him around,
yeah,
end arounds, all that type of stuff. You got to get Dante Thornton Jr. at the X because he's going to stretch the field and he's going to garner a lot of attention. That's going to open things up, like you said, for Brock Bowers. And then I think Jacoby Myers proved that he can be an outside receiver. He
oh,
split
absolutely,
inside outside last year,
absolutely,
and he was
absolutely,
great on both.
absolutely.
And then I think you would probably put Jack Besh at the slot position.
Slot, yeah,
And I think at that point, you now have a very solid core of wide receivers,
you do,
right? And if there is an injury, Trey Tucker absolutely can be a starter. I
yeah,
just don't think that the way that we tried to use him in a traditional wide
yeah. It's
receiver,
not gonna work.
it didn't work.
Mm-mm.
When he got open, and this kind of sucks. This is no fault of his because I've said it before. When you watch the games last year, and I would get so mad, even in the live, without going back and watching the pro film later, where you could see Trey get open and no one throw him the ball.
No one can get it.
That
Yeah,
happened way too many times last year.
that it.
So if he can come in, because I don't think Dante is going to be quite ready to be a starter in the NFL yet. He's still a little bit too raw. He needs to clean some things up because even though he did say he does have a route tree, and I believe him, when you do watch the way that he moves, he doesn't have a lot of moves to shake off
Yeah,
NFL level cornerbacks.
yeah.
And so it's not just going to be about the speed because newsflash, the cornerbacks in the
Everybody's
NFL are
fast.
very fast.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of slow corners in the
yeah,
NFL. So you can't just rely on that. You've got to be able to give them a double move. You got to give them that shoulder fake, that head fake, get them off of their balance and then get open. And then your speed matters now because they're 5 steps behind you. They're not going to catch you because you're too
yeah,
fast. But
yeah,
if you just try to go step by step, they're going to be there with you. And now it's just relying on how high can this cornerback jump and how good is his timing to
yeah,
break up the pass or intercept it. And we don't want that. We want him to get open more. Wide open would be preferable. So I don't think he's quite ready yet. I think Trey Tucker's job is safe for now as the starter, but I do think you're going to see more of Dante getting thrown in the mix. Trey come out of the game or Trey move into like slot receiver, Kobe come out of the game, Besh come out of the game, something like that. They're going to mix it up. The thing I'm excited about is Chip Kelly's offense. This
yeah.
dude's very innovative. He has a lot of young talent to work with.
He does.
I cannot wait to see what he does with it. So with that, let's transition a little bit into the coaching staff, starting with Chip Kelly coming over to the Raiders. He was terrible as an NFL head coach. Did not pan out. He did a lot of weird stuff, ran players off. It just didn't work. As a college coach, great. As an offensive coordinator in college, great. As an offensive coordinator in the NFL, I think that, there's a lot of questions about why didn't we get Chip Kelly last year? And I think because my understanding is that they did reach out to him.
Yeah,
Wasn't interested in the job. Why? Because he's not going to come and work for a head coach who hadn't proven himself in the NFL. Despite the fact that he had failed as a head coach in the NFL,
right.
he was like, I'm just not going to go there because what if this doesn't work out? I don't want to lose my job next year. I think he came this time because You got a Hall of Fame head coach, and three, maybe, because we got the additional fourth year, maybe 3-4 years. Pete finally retires. Chip gets another shot at head coach, takes over, learns from a great one. I think it's an absolute dream to have these two head coaches. How did you feel about it when Chip was hired as offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think Chip is a phenomenal offensive mind. But just kind of like you mentioned, someone that you do have concerns with his people skills. Just the way he adapts or lack of adapting to specifically star players. So if Chip just kind of focuses on being a mastermind, being a wizard, drawing up plays, drawing up schemes. I love the idea of Chip Kelly, absolutely. But and that's why I like this whole Genty stance thing kind of rubs me a little the wrong way. It's like, shit, man, like just focus on drawing up the plays and getting your scheme together. Don't do all the extra stuff. Let Genty cook. If you see something down the line that's not working, then we can kind of address it then. But as a pure offensive mind, someone that can change the tempo of the game and stuff like that, there's not many people better than Chip.
Yeah. And I agree. I thought it was interesting that it was Chip Kelly that got him convinced to change his stance rather than Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
And I didn't have, to be honest, I liked his stance in college. Now, does it give him an edge to get down and bend his knees and everything and get ready to launch? Maybe it adds a fraction of a second to his timing. But I didn't see any real big delay in college between the quarterback hiking the ball and when he got into his movement and then the quarterback handing the ball off to him. I loved his stance in college because of the Michael Mayer or Michael Myers,
Yeah. Yeah.
memes out there.
Yeah.
It's just intimidating when you just have a running back just standing there like a serial killer.
Right. Right.
Like, what is this dude doing? Like,
Right.
yeah, he's gonna score on you. That's what
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I agree. I don't think you should, you don't mess with perfection. The dude's stance to me was not an issue. The fact that they got him to change his stance, he's a rookie. He hasn't proven anything in the NFL, so he's going to do what his coaches asked him to
Right.
do because he wants to be successful. We'll see if it translates. And if it translates and he's picking up major yards and we're winning games, nobody's going to remember the controversy over the stance.
Right.
But I think I watched the interview with him and
Gruden.
Kay Adams.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
she was asking him who got you to change your stance? How did that happen? And he gave the whole story about how Chip Kelly was like, "Hey, if we're playing basketball, how are you going to guard me?" And I went down to my guard stance. He's like, "No, that's how I want you to play football." Now for me, I think that the way that all of that happened, I think that all goes away, right? I think nobody cares about that at the end of the day if he's picking them up. However, in that interview, he did say, "Well, I changed it because I haven't done anything yet."
Yeah. Yeah.
So what he's hinting at is, let me go do some big plays, and then I'm standing back up. Because
Exactly.
now I'm too important.
Exactly.
I'm going to do it my way.
Exactly. Exactly.
And listen, if we had a player who, when he came to the team, everybody loves this player. I'll mention his name in a second. But when he came to the team, John Gruden told him, "You're going to play a wide receiver position exactly like this. This is what you're going to do."
I know where you're going.
And he was this close to literally being cut from the team because he was doing what John Gruden told him. And he came out and said, "I literally either had to risk pissing off John Gruden or getting kicked out of the NFL.
Exactly.
I chose not to. I chose to piss off John Gruden, and I stopped listening to him. I did it my way, and that was Hunter Renfrow. And we know how that all panned out. For a couple of years, Third and Renfrow was amazing because he didn't listen to what coach told him to do. He said, "I know my body. I know how I can move.
Exactly.
You're trying to put me in this box. Let me out of the box. That's not who I am." And so I think the same thing with Ashton Genty. Let him get out there. let him pick up a couple of touchdowns, let him pick up some big plays, some highlight reels, and then he can go to Chip and be like, you know what? I kind of like this new stance, but
yeah,
I'm going to go back to my old way
yeah,
because, I'm just feeling my old way.
yeah.
Now that could backfire because if he does some big plays in the new Chip Kelly stance that he
You got
wants,
to stay with
and
it.
then he stands up and he
Yeah,
loses
yeah,
yards,
yeah, yeah.
that could blow back in his face. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Pete Carroll, future Hall of Fame head coach. He's
Mhm.
won everywhere he's gone, but he's had some unsuccessful stints as well. Do you think he's too old to be a coach? Because I'm one. I talk to players. I know you've talked to some players. When you ask them about this dude, every single one of them says this dude has high energy. He
Yeah.
does not look like a 73-year-old man. Doesn't act like one. He's running around on the field, and he's got the guys playing outside. It's like 100 degrees in Vegas right now, and he's out there in a long sleeve shirt and pants running with players on and off the field, running around like a kid. Do you think he's too old to coach?
No, man, you're only as old as you feel, you know. I guarantee he feels a lot younger than Andy Reid. You know, he feels a lot younger than some of the other coaches that are younger than him. So, like you said, everyone that you talk to about Pete, he is pure energy. It's nothing manufactured there. Like that guy loves life. He loves ball. He loves being around the team. Um, Now, what I will say is, like, do I think he's going to be a coach a whole lot longer? No, but I think that he's going to understand his task is to build this foundation, get these guys going in the right direction, win some games. But ultimately, he may end up, walking into the sunset as some kind of consultant for the Raiders, in some type of way. But I think that Pete definitely has some more years left in him. He's not slowing down. Again, he loves ball. He's out there playing catch with the guys, shooting hoops with the guys. I mean, he is just he's energy, and you're as old as you feel, man.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that there's two hopes I have for the Pete Carroll era with the Raiders. Number one, he gets us back bare minimum to the playoffs, preferably this year.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. Um, but I would love a Super Bowl with Pete Carroll.
Oh my God.
And
Oh
I
my
would
God.
love
Yeah.
for when Pete Carroll retires to retire a Raider, forget about Seattle and how they booted him out before it was his time.
Yeah.
And he just stays Raider alumni.
Oh,
Like,
I would love
he
it.
had his time in Seattle. He'll
Yeah.
always appreciate them, but now it's Raider Nation for life.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying, and stay in there. Like be part of Mark Davis's close counsel. A consultant, something like that. That would be great because he's so good for the culture. And we needed someone like that because honestly,
Yeah.
when we missed out on what's Ben Johnson, a lot of coaches weren't looking at the Raiders and being like, oh, this is a good opportunity. Because at the time, we didn't have a running back one. We didn't have a wide receiver one. We didn't have a quarterback one. So we're not going to get the best named coaches. So the fact that we were able to get a Pete Carroll in that situation, that's a home run, man. That's a home run.
Yeah. Defense. There's some big concerns with the defense right now. Secondary is very young. But we have some guys that we've brought in, like Jeremy Chin, for example, Eland and Roberts at linebacker to replace Spillane. But my biggest concern isn't even the secondary or the linebackers right now. My biggest concern is this defensive line. And the reason why is because we had three of our starting defensive linemen last year either out for the entire season, part of the season, or most of the season. And I'm talking about Malcolm Kuntz missing the whole season. He's back this year, getting healthy. Christian Wilkins missed most of the season, going out in week 3, I think it was, or 4. We thought from the reports when that happened with his Jones fracture in his foot that he would be back by the end of the season. He barely just got his boot taken off. And then coach comes out and says he's not ready to get out on the field and start practicing. It's been a long, hard recovery for him. Now, Malcolm or Max, he's been out there on the field, and all reports saying he's 100%. He is
Yeah.
going 100% in practice, no slowing down. Doesn't even look like he was injured last year. However, when you have three of your star defensive linemen go down with major injuries in a season, rarely do all three of them come back and even are at near the same level they were before the injury. And
Yeah.
so to have three of them have that happen to him is concerning. Not
Yeah.
so much concerned with Max. I think he's looking great. Hopefully the injury doesn't come back and he'll be fine. But I'm worried about Christian Wilkins and I'm worried about Malcolm Kuntz. Can Malcolm come back after being out for an entire year and be dominant? For him, I think so, because he has so much athleticism, so much bend, so
Yeah.
much hand checking ability. I think as long as he's 90% in football shape, he'll be fine. He'll get his money. Christian Wilkins, on the other hand, I'm worried because he's a big boy. And when you're a big boy and you have a foot injury, especially when it's not healing the way you hope it would, that's hard to come back from.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think just Wilkins, as big as he is, he depends on, being able to have his feet, being able to push off and things like that. It is unfortunate news, because from what I'm hearing, it's kind of maybe the screw broke and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, it's definitely concerning, but I think as long as we, give him the proper time to heal, don't try to rush him back. Um, the fact that he is out there, still kind of participating in drills and stuff like that. So it shows that, he is able to do certain stuff. I think they're just, being very cautious with him. Um, but I think, as long as we don't, rush him back, I think he'll be able to get back to, the dominant force that he was. Because one thing about him, he's just his game. I mean, he's so technically sound as well. So it's not like he just like depends on just being, overly big or, just manhandling people. Like he's a very technical guy. It's great hand-to-hand combat, great moves. He has an arsenal of pass rushing moves and things like that. So he's not just focused and dependent on one thing. So the Raiders, I think, are doing the right thing, letting them come across slowly, and I think he'll be okay. And as far as like Malcolm Kuntz, I'm totally confident in what he's going to be able to bring to the table. It was a bad injury, of course, but it sounds like he's really been attacking the rehab. He's been, getting back in shape and stuff like that. So again, as long as we're not rushing people back and, we got some of the best, medical staff in the business. So I'm feeling okay about it. But again, it is an area for concern for sure.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that, Malcolm can come back in a really big way.
Yeah, we need them.
For anybody that's been following my channel for a long time, I did a year and a half ago, well, at the end of what was it, 2023 season, where Malcolm had his 8 sacks and whatever, and he was just blowing it up. And Max had a good season too. I made a Batman and Robin analogy with Max
Yeah,
Crosby and
yeah,
Malcolm Kuntz, man, and I want that to come to fruition. I want to see that happen because I think those two guys, their motor is insane.
insane.
And
Yeah,
what Malcolm makes up for, where I think Max actually has some weakness in, and yes, Max Crosby does have weaknesses. He's not Superman.
yeah,
um but I think that he has superior bend and is able to track and adjust to the running back better than Max Crosby. Now with Max Crosby, the dude is basically just unguardable. You have to double
yeah,
team him because he's just insanely high motor and he's waving his arms all over the place. You never know which direction he's going to go.
right.
The problem is he'll get past that block sometimes and he'll overrun his sack and the quarterback will get out of it. Whereas with Malcolm, he tracks the quarterback better and he's able to adjust his body and his balance to get that sack.
Yeah,
Um, And when I seen him finally get that opportunity, when Patrick Graham or when um I'm just having a brain fart, not Patrick Graham, Antonio Pierce, when he
Yeah.
took over and he said, "Listen, you're going to be a starter."
Yeah.
Um, he took it and he ran with it. I knew he had that potential. I had been
Me too.
screaming
Me too.
at the Raiders
Me
TV.
too.
Why is Malcolm Kuntz not in there? Why did we even draft Tyree Wilson? Watch what Malcolm Kuntz has done in games and in preseason. This dude he looks like Khalil Mack, went to the same school as Khalil Mack. He has been like Khalil Mack. He doesn't have the strength as Khalil Mack,
Yeah.
but the dude is insanely good. Why is he not getting his chance? When he finally got his chance, lo and
Ball.
behold, he was the second best defensive lineman we had on the team. And
Mhm.
so I'm really excited to see him come back with the Raiders. And according to the insider source that I have, I talked to about the whole situation before he signed his contract and during the negotiations as it was happening. There were some very serious suitors, including the San Francisco 49ers, after
Oh, I
Malcolm
bet.
Kuntz.
I
They
bet.
were throwing some money at this
I
kid,
bet.
and he said, "I want to stay a Raider."
Yeah.
And so the Raiders were able to match what was going on, and he stayed in Vegas because he loves this team. He loves his teammates. He's excited to be here. And that's the kind of guy that you want. And just going back to Jacoby Myers, that's the kind of guy you want on your team. The other thing also is, he was on the Rush podcast just a few days ago, and he was talking about his injury and how devastating it was for him. And I can only imagine
Mhm.
anyone who makes it to the pros in whatever sport they're playing, and then they get a season-ending injury. That's got to be mentally devastating.
Mhm.
But, he said for the first few games, that's how I felt. I was devastated about it. But then I actually got to see the game from a different perspective. And I'm in a better place as a football player mentally
Yeah.
now that I've had to step away from the game for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think Pete Carroll said the same thing. I think the best thing that ever happened to him was stepping away from the game for a year and actually getting to watch games and enjoy
Yeah.
games as a fan and see things from a different perspective. Let's see how it pans out, but I'm excited to see if Malcolm Kuntz is 100%. Get that Batman and Robin analogy going, get it geared
Yeah.
up, ready
Yeah.
to post all over, make it go viral, because I'm telling you right now, it's going to be fun watching Max get 16, 17, 18 sacks, Malcolm get at least 13, 14 sacks.
Oh yeah.
And then it's just going to come down to the interior defensive line. Now, we picked up a guy named Tank Hemingway.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with this kid, and what do you think about him? I
Um.
love
Oh.
his name, by the way.
Oh. Oh. Tonka. Tonka.
Yeah, yeah,
Tonka.
yeah.
Anyway.
Tonka.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He's Yeah. He's somebody that is. Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to watch him play. Um. Yeah. The name is awesome. It's such a Raider name.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think that he can bring something to the table. He does have. Um. He has some burst up front. He can move. I know he even played some offense as well. So, I think he's just going to be another guy that's going to bring, some competition to that room. Especially with Christian out, and you know, one thing about Christian, one of his best attributes is his motor as well. And honestly, I think probably one of the most underrated signings we did was bring Adam Butler back, because he has an insane motor as well. Like whenever, me and my guys, we actually do weekly film breakdowns, especially towards the end of the season. There was a lot of clips that we just watched of Adam Butler with the relentless motor. So I think just that D line room, internal lineman, it's going to be some good competition, and hopefully Tonka can be part of that.
Guys, I do want to just interrupt this with just a quick little commercial break here. I just want to let you guys know about rooftree.pro. If you're a contractor, specifically you do roofs or exteriors, but you do have to do at least roofing, but you can do other things as well. If you're a general contractor, you got to check out rooftree.pro, because they were founded, one, by a Raiders fan, two, a lifelong contractor, and three, somebody who absolutely hates what Home Advisor, Thumbtack, Angie's List, Yelp are doing to contractors by gouging them for leads that don't pan out. So if you are looking for a directory that's going to bring customers to you with all kinds of cool advanced AI features that they are rolling out as they just launched the platform, you have got to check out rooftree.pro. Link is down in the description. And yes, it is a sponsor of the channel, so it does go to help out the channel every time a contractor signs up, but it's very minimal and it's not going to cost you any extra. And right now you can get an insane deal as they are just launching the platform. You can get an entire year subscription for as low as $29 for the whole year. Imagine that. That's like lunch, right? For the entire year. If you got 10 jobs out of it, that could be easily $15,000-$20,000 in profit for you. So if you're a roofer, if you know a roofer or somebody who is a general contractor and does roofs, or somebody who does roofing, gutters and exteriors, painting, whatever it is, if roofing is a part of it, go and check out rooftree.pro today. All right, guys. So let's talk real quickly about the offensive line, because that was kind of the Achilles heel last year. We had a lot of Achilles heels actually last year because there was a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
We got some news that Dylan Parham is now moved back to the left guard. Jackson Powers Johnson has been starting at center through all the OTAs, and he's even announcing himself as the center, even though on Raiders.com it still doesn't have him listed as the center. It has him listed as a guard. We all know where he's going to play this year. And then, we have DJ Glaze and Colton Miller at left or right and left tackle. How do you feel about the offensive line right now? Do you think we have a good enough group to keep Geno Smith off the turf? Because he got sacked 50 times last year, which, I mean, he had the worst ranked offense in the NFL over there in Seattle. I don't think we're anywhere near that bad, but I mean, can we at least, in your opinion, make top 12 offensive line this year?
It's tough. It's tough to say. Depending on it depends on how the offensive line takes the new scheme, with Chip Kelly, so we're going to be doing a lot of zone schemes. So like those guys are going to have to be able to move out in space, a lot of pull in and good communication and stuff like that. So I think Colton will be fine. I know Jackson will be fine. Parham is just a guy that I cannot be too I can't depend on him. I really can't. So he's gonna have to show it. I actually did like Meredith. I think Meredith, he towards the end, he showed a lot of good stuff on tape. Alex Kappa had a horrendous season last year, with the Bengals. Statistically one of the worst. And then you got Glaze. So, Glaze learning the new systems, almost like he's going to be a rookie all over again. So it really just kind of depends on how they pick up the system. But I can't say that I'm going into the season super confident in that at O-line, unfortunately, so being a top 12 offensive line, if we can get there, hallelujah. But I can't say I'm that confident.
Yeah, because I mean, if we look at the offseason last year, all the reports were coming out is defense for the Raiders was looking on fire, and everybody kept saying, well, this is just because the defense is so good.
Yeah,
and then it turned out that no, it was just because the offensive line was so bad.
Right.
And really the only two upsides that we had all year last year was JPJ and DJ Glaze.
Yeah.
And, DJ Glaze outplayed what everybody expected from him.
Absolutely.
But by no means was he a Pro Bowler or anything like that. I mean, he was middle of the pack rankings in the PFF. And the same thing with JPJ. He was middle of the pack, except for when he played at center, and then he was top 5.
Yeah.
So I think that pretty much solidifies. We let Andre James go.
Yeah.
Why would you do that if you're not intending on him being the center? So all questions are, is he or is he not going to be the center? I guarantee you, and only God knows the future, But if I were to guess, I would say JPJ is the starting center in week
Gotta
1
be.
and will
Gotta be.
continue to be so for many years to come.
Yeah.
Um, Colton Miller, he played terrible the first 6 weeks of the season. He was
Mhm.
out of shape,
Yeah.
just not on track with
Yeah.
anything. Finally started to get it coming back together. By the end of the season, he looked back to normal Colton Miller that we know and love.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that will be improved this year. I don't know how much, but I don't think that we come out of the gate stumbling as badly as we did last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the offensive coordinator we had last year, the offense we had last year, the injuries, the rookies, JPJ second year, DJ Glaze second year. Yes, new system, but they're comfortable now,
Mhm.
right? That's their when they go into practice, that's their practice field.
Yeah.
When they go to their locker, this is our locker room, right?
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
rookies anymore.
Yeah.
And you can see the comfortability that these guys, especially JPJ, has. And like when I was talking to Chris Collier, he was saying, probably the biggest jokester is actually Dylan Laube
Oh,
in the
wow.
locker
Yeah.
room. And that kind of blew me away. I thought it like easily would have been JPJ. He was like, no,
Yeah.
JPJ is a close second, but
Yeah.
Dylan is an absolute clown in the locker room. So that was a pretty interesting thing there. But definitely JPJ is a big personality guy, and you can tell that he feels very comfortable. He's taken a leadership role. When Ashton Genty came into the building, first time they run into each other, he's like, "Hey, I'm your starting center. Welcome
Yeah.
to the black hole." Right?
Yeah.
That he's taken that
Yeah.
leadership, and so I'd really like to see that. I would like the Raiders to, at least just be middle of the pack, at
Yeah.
least on the offensive line, because Geno Smith is really a good, accurate quarterback, especially when he's got time to throw the ball.
Yeah.
So just give him some time. And I think, adding an Ashton Genty is going to help if Ashton Genty, if he turns out to be what we're all believing and hoping he's going to be. That's going to take some big pressure off of Geno Smith, because now defenses are going to have to account for the running back, which they really didn't have to do last year. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody was scared of the running back class that we had last year. Plus, the offensive line couldn't open up holes to save their life anyway. So they would just, hone in on Minshew or AOC or Ritter, whoever was starting that week. And it was just a sack fest. So I'm pretty excited to see what we're going to do this year. I think all around right now, the Raiders are a better team. We have a
Oh,
better
for
coaching
sure.
staff. And this is no knock on Antonio Pierce, because I was one of the biggest advocates that he deserved a chance to get the head coaching job. I think where Antonio Pierce went wrong is I don't think that he had enough belief in his own ability, and him bringing in all these other head coaches to be advisors to him. I think that hurt him. I think that he didn't speak up enough for himself. He said that in his very last press conference that, not starting AOC was a mistake, and that basically he admitted that it was not even his choice, and he didn't speak up loud enough for it. I think Antonio Pierce will be a good head coach in the NFL at some point. I think what Antonio coach needs to do right now is, I think he should go and go down to the college. Well, he can't go back to the college ranks. I forgot, because he's got those sanctions.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
I think that he should probably go jump on another team,
Mhm.
assistant defensive coordinator, linebackers coach, spend a few years working his way back up the chain, get to
Yeah.
that DC position, really hone his skills as a DC coordinator, and then jump back up. Because one thing I do know, this as terrible as last season was, and it was
Mm.
horrible.
Yeah.
He made a lot of coaching decisions that made you like go crazy.
Yeah.
But the players were still playing hard for this dude. And the players that I speak to, both on the platform as well as the ones who don't want to come on and say it, they all say they love Antonio Pierce, and they played their
Absolutely.
butts off for him.
Absolutely.
He was a great team leader coach.
Absolutely.
He just wasn't ready to be a head coach just yet. So I do think in the future he will be. That being said, I think right now we have a head coach. Definitely he's already ready, because he's already been there,
Yeah.
done that for a very
Yeah.
long time. Offensive coordinator is a very confident guy who's going to mix it up. This is what drove me crazy last year. Our offense was so anemic. You
Oh my,
knew exactly what the Raiders were going to do before they
yeah,
did it, and it was just like mind-boggling. This year, you have no idea what the Raiders are going to do
none.
from snap to snap
Yeah,
because Chip Kelly's the offensive coordinator. So I think altogether, I think the Raiders are definitely a better coached team. I think we have more talent on the team now. We definitely have more talent on
yeah.
the team. We
Oh,
have
for sure.
Ashton Genty. We have some great rookies. We've added guys like Raheem Mostert. We definitely have more talent this year than we did last year. So I think if everybody's healthy, this is my prediction. This is my guess, not even a prediction. This is my guess is that by the end of the season, the Raiders in the last one or two games will be playing for a wild card slot. How
Mm.
do you feel about that? What are the chances, in your opinion, of the Raiders at least making a wild card, or are you more optimistic? Maybe you're like Super Bowl all the way. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm at the point now in my fandom and my fanhood is I can't give the Raiders any unearned optimism. So, they're going to have to prove it to me. I when I did kind of the prediction, I think I have them winning either like 8 or 9 games, and honestly, if they win 9 games, you're right. They are going to be playing for a potential wild card spot, at the end of the year. But I think that we just have to continue building this team, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in one year. I think we have gotten a lot better, so I think an 100% improvement, is something that, we should be proud of, going from 4 games to 8 games. I think that's a successful season, and then we'll build off of that. So, I just think we just have to get better. We have to get better at the linebacker position. We have to get better on the offensive line because our division got better. The Chargers are going to be getting after it this year. They're going to be a big physical team. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. They control the division. And then, if Bo Nix, does not have a sophomore slump and he continues to improve, the Broncos can be a real deal. So we just got to continue to get better every day. But yeah, I think 8 or 9 wins is realistic for me.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. I'm right around middle of the pack, hunting. I don't know if we'll make a wild card, but we'll be in the
Yeah,
hunt for that
yeah,
wild card
yeah.
towards the end of the season, which is obviously always tough because we always have a divisional game at the end of the season. But I do think that the Raiders have made significant improvements across the organization by
Mm,
bringing in Tom Brady
absolutely,
to kind of
absolutely.
take away some of these wonky decisions that Mark Davis does. Having Mark Davis just trusting him to, you know what, you make the call because I obviously don't know what I've been doing for the past
Yeah,
20 years. Um, so, from head coaching, I think the Geno Smith acquisition was absolutely phenomenal. I know a lot of people don't like it. A lot of people think he sucks, and this and that. He's just another Derek Carr. Well, I can tell you right now, if Derek Carr had the talent level on the defensive side of the ball that we have right now, I know the linebacker's a little bit questionable, and we're going to jump into that as with the last segment today. And it is going to be the linebackers, but I think he could have made more playoffs than he did. I don't know how far he goes because kind of time sometimes he chokes in the big games. But with that being said, I don't think Geno Smith's not that guy. Geno Smith
yeah,
is a different guy.
yeah.
He's a very accurate quarterback. He's athletic, and he's a great leader and a great veteran to upgrade this team with. Now, with the linebacker position, and this is the final thing I wanted to touch on. I've been screaming since last season. I was screaming in the offseason. I made a video about the guy, and that is Amari Ferrari Gainer,
Amari
right?
Ferrari, yeah.
I was saying the Raiders needed to draft this dude in the third round. He
Mm,
goes undrafted. When you watch this dude play,
he can
he
play.
is lights out. In college, when he got to the Raiders in preseason, he was our most dynamic defensive player all preseason. Why in the heck is this dude not a starter for the Raiders?
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
screaming the same thing about Malcolm Kuntz. And
Yeah.
I was right about that. Now, I could be wrong about Amari, but I'm telling you right now, if you put Amari Gainer in there and make him a starter, we have a good linebacking core with him and Elandon. Elandon suffers in the pass game a little bit,
Yeah.
but he is one of the best run stuffers in the
Oh
entire
yeah.
NFL.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so if you put Amari is already shown himself in the offseason and then all throughout his college career that this dude is a missile when it comes
Yeah.
to design blitz packages to get him at the quarterback. He gets there and he hits the home run when he gets there.
Yep.
I don't know why we didn't use him last year. It made absolutely no sense. And it was very cryptic from Antonio Pierce, as though he was in the doghouse or something. But everybody I talked to within the organization had no idea what was going on. Like, nobody could explain why he wasn't out there. It was like, I don't know if I haven't heard anything. I don't know what's going on. I don't understand the decision. But look, Divine Diablo, I was never sold on him.
Yeah.
And obviously I was right. He is good sometimes. He'll make a highlight reel and then he's terrible 4 plays in a row. I
Yeah.
don't think that's Amari Gainer. How do you feel about Amari Gainer, the linebacking core? Because I know you brought that up with the linebacker core. With the young guys that we have, how do you feel about the linebacking core right now moving forward?
Yeah, I think, there's definitely some questions. There's definitely some questions. However, I definitely like, I like Roberts. I think, you know, well, actually, I'll start with Gainer first. So, no, I definitely like Gainer. On film, he definitely pops out on film. He did, early on. Even when you looked at him just in preseason, he kind of popped out. Making plays. He's another guy with a good motor. He's relentless in attacking. The ball carrier or whoever has the ball. He's very athletic. He's a guy that if he's coached properly, he could be a guy that really moves and shakes some things in the NFL. So I'm definitely excited to see him continue to grow. Like I said, he has good size, good athletic ability. He just kind of has to, work on some technique things and, diagnose things a little bit faster. But, I'm not too worried about him. I think he'll continue to develop. Elandon Roberts, though, I am excited about him. I think when we got him, he was better than when we got what's his name, Spillane, from free agency. So, I think that Elandon is, he's going to be, the green dot guy. He's going to be a leader out there, and he's been well coached. He's been coached by some good coaches. You think that, he spent that time in the Patriots. He was coached by, Patricia, Flores, Jared Mayo, there. And then he was able to, be coached in Pittsburgh, with Mike Tomlin and those guys. So, he's a well coached individual. So I think he's going to be able to bring some good leadership to that room. And honestly, I like Devin White, man. I know a lot of people kind of have given up on Devin White. I think that at least for what Devin White does well, he does well. He can get after the quarterback. He's great at blitzing. He's an athletic freak. Now, does he misdiagnose plays sometimes? And is he a little questionable in coverage sometimes? Yes. But as far as, being a guy that can be a thumper, he's played at a high level. He was a captain for a Super Bowl team. I'm not giving up on Devin White. So I was actually pretty fired up that we got him. So even though, we do have those guys, and I still think we need to upgrade, at the position. But, I feel that, they can be good enough because our front four is going to be so good. So as long as the front four does what they're supposed to do, the linebacking core can at least get by this year. But long term, we do got to get better.
What about Tommy Eichenberg? I mean, we've kind of like just forgotten about him. He got some starts out there when Divine went down. I don't know. I'm on the fence about him. He's a rookie. You don't want to judge a rookie by his rookie season. But from the praise that Antonio Pierce gave him, honestly, I just look at his play and I contrast that to Amari Gaynor, and I just see a night and day difference. I think
Night and
Amari's
day.
way better. I don't understand.
Yeah, no, night and day. Honestly, me living in Ohio, man. So I watched a lot of Tommy Eichenberg, at Ohio State. To be honest, I'm just not a fan of Eichenberg, man. Very stiff. He's a downhill guy, but it's just I don't know, man. I'm just not a big fan. But like you said, when you compare him and salute Jeff, when you compare him and Amari Gaynor, it is night and day. Absolutely. There should be no situation where Eichenberg is taking snaps from Amari Gaynor. None at all. That's criminal if that happens.
Yeah, I was completely flabbergasted by that last year and upset with it. Because when I was, if anybody watches my live game coverage, I was screaming at the monitor about how upset. I even ended up shutting down one of my live streams because I literally got so mad. I was so pissed at the game and what Antonio Pierce was doing. And I think that was one of the games where Divine had just missed so many plays. It was just so terrible. And I think it was one of his worst games of the season. And
Yeah.
At the press conference, they even bring that up, and he's defending him, which any good coach should do. But
Yeah.
still, you don't stick with a guy who is just not it. He's just not getting it
Yeah.
done. And then so he goes down, he gets injured, and you throw in Tommy Eichenberg, and I'm like, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
Is it because Tommy was drafted and Amari wasn't? He was undrafted? Is that why? Because as far as play goes, now listen, I'm not there at the practices. I don't
Yeah.
know what is being seen there, but I can tell you this: I know people who were, and
Yeah.
people who were scratching their head as to why it was Eichenberg and
Yeah.
not
Gainer.
Amari.
Yeah.
Because even in practice, this dude was showing out according to the people that I talked to. So I'm hoping that this year he does the same thing. He shows out. I would love to see that young man get out there on the field and do what he does and prove me right. Prove me
Yeah.
right. I feel the same way about Chris Collier. I really believe that at all the running backs that we have, I think Chris Collier should be in the mix for
Yeah.
that third running back spot, if not even the second running back spot, depending on how Mostert can, maintain throughout an entire season, being 32 years old. But yeah, man, I'm excited about the season this year more than I have been in many years. And because when Josh McDummy came, McDaniels, sorry, I don't mean to slander his name. When he came to the Raiders, I even told my wife, I was like, oh my God, it's going to be a disaster. Because I watched what he did in Denver. I was happy of what he did to Denver because I hate the Broncos. But when we brought him, I was like, oh no. Like maybe I shouldn't have been cheering on the destruction of the Broncos because now it's come back to haunt me. And sure enough, that's what it did. And so I had very low expectations. I was very upset about it. And then, I really wanted Antonio to get the job, but I didn't have super high expectations with him. Realistically, I always try to be optimistic and say we're going to win the Super Bowl every year, but we don't. But you never know. Maybe this year.
Maybe this
We'll
year.
I'm excited. Well, thank you, brother, for coming and spending your Saturday with me, along with all of you in the chat right now. Appreciate it. Raider Nation, guys, if you have not checked out Protect the Shield podcast with my boy Chris, go and check him out. Hit him up with a subscription and, follow us for daily Raiders content because that's what you're always going to get right here on the Raider D podcast. Until next time, Raiders just win, baby.
Baby.